Mental professionals of Reddit. What is the worst mental condition that you know of? Cotard delusion. I'm a nurse and had to take care of a huge man with this condition. He came in with some odd behavior and escalated to Cotard. The delusion makes you think you are actually dead. He would scream he was dead all day and night. Lived in constant terror. He was such a sweetheart, but became so worn down and terrified over time he got quite dangerous and punched a nurse in the face. Dementias. Watching a person, their memories, their personality die but their body remain living and confused, is horrifying. Delusional parasitosis comes to mind with this prompt. I've watched a patient go to well over a dozen doctors trying to get confirmation that they're parasite-ridden. After countless stool samples, blood work, labs, scans, biopsies, etc., she clearly didn't have any but remains convinced. Though not a medical professional, during my brief time working at an outpatient facility, I encountered a patient with body integrity identity disorder, BID, convinced that his arm wasn't his own. He consistently described it as feeling like a stranger's limb. His intense desire to have his arm removed led him into a deep depressive episode, culminating in a self-mutilation attempt that ultimately needed amputation. Post-surgery, he claimed to finally feel sense of peace. However, I left the job so I don't know the lasting impact on his mental state from the surgery. BID is still a relatively unknown identity disorder and doesn't have many treatment options so far. SSRIs are usually given to alleviate depressive symptoms, but it doesn't always seem to help. Going through something like that just seems like an awful experience. Dealing with those obsessive thoughts nonstop? That's gotta mess with your head big time. I don't have it, but my psychiatrist referred to anorexia nervosa as the 7-year disease because in 7 years from diagnosis you're either in recovery or dead. Edit. If you're reading this, I'm really happy you're still here and I'm proud of you for fighting. Prosospagnosia. I had a patient with this as a therapist. They reported to the ER because their face fell off. The only thing therapy could accomplish was to teach patient how to use other markers to identify people. Kagras syndrome. The idea that the people around you were replaced with imposters. This one is absolutely hell on everyone. And in neuropsych, definitely primary progressive aphasia. Basically, you aggressively lose the ability to speak and understand language. I had a patient once that was late to their appointment, and when they finally got there, they were pissed because none of the signs were in English. They failed all of their language tests but passed all the other markers to rule out dementia. This person was an avid runner, vegan, perfectly healthy, and would likely go on to never be able to speak or understand anyone speaking to them within 5 years or so, yet live a long life due to no other health concerns. Edit to add. Since I'm being downvoted, I will say my prosospagnosia patient had sudden onset severe case. They were fine and then happened to walk past a mirror at work and they couldn't recognize any facial features that they could identify themselves by or any their colleagues. They were brought to the ER in a panicked state and their chief complaint was just that their face fell off. Their exact words. The panicked feeling and the severity of this case was what made it a top 3 for me. This particular patient had a small stroke to cause this disorder and subsequently spent 3 years in a treatment facility recovering as best they could. It was an honor and a privilege to be a part of their care team. Which celebrities have a wildly different personality from their public persona? Cher is a notorious introvert, yet her persona is flashy outfits, outlandish personality and entertainer. She just likes to go home and be alone at the end of the day. I love that the top comments are people who are less of an asshole off screen. Ran into J.K. Simmons at a farmer's market in LA. Super nice dude. James Gandolfini was a Birkenstock wearing, Jerry listening hippie. Andy Samberg looks like the exact opposite of his roles during interviews, very professional. Matt Berry. He's wacky, brash, loud and obnoxious on screen. In most interviews I've seen him in, he's very quiet and is serious when talking about his music, especially in group cast interviews. He always seems to be the quietest, mainly sitting back and letting the others handle the questions. If WW3 breaks out and you're drafted, what position would suit you? I'd be the dude at the start of the movie who gets brutally blown up to set the tone. I'm a 62-year-old man. If I'm drafted, we've already lost the war. The fetal position. Casualty. Is there a NCO in charge of back in my day? Asterisk. Well, I work in cybersecurity, so I would assume that the biggest change would be the source of my paycheck. What is the most elegant word in the English language? Luminescence edit. Arcadian is another one I like. Interlude. I don't know why, but it's my foreign dad's favorite word. I'm still not sure he knows what it means. Silhouette. Quintessential. Ubiquitous. I don't know why, but I just love that word. Acquiescence. What is the biggest cultural shock you experienced when going to someone else's house? This is the strangest experience I've ever had at someone's home. I worked with this young Cuban gal as a waitress while I was studying in university. She mentioned that her sister needed some help with math in her nursing program, so I offered to go over and tutor. I knew it was a multi-generational house with parents, adult children, grandparents, great-grandparents and babies. When I arrived at the house, only the sister was home. She invited me in and started unloading the refrigerator of leftovers and asked if I would like to have some of this, some of that, etc. I was genuinely not hungry, but she was super persistent and made us some food anyway. She offered me a drink, but I just wanted water. She made herself a Cuban coffee and insisted I have one too. Then my friend comes home, looks at us studying. In front of me I have snacks, water, and a coffee. She begins screaming at her sister in Spanish. I can barely make it out, but she's mad that her sister didn't offer me anything to drink or eat. I explained I wasn't hungry and I had 2 drinks in front of me. But she was still mad at her sister. Their parents came home and they started yelling about the same thing and accusing their daughters of being bad hostesses. I felt bad, and I somehow allowed 5 drinks to serve to me and so much food. I was stuffed for the rest of the day. The whole experience was a weird combination of feeling guilty or like I may have insulted them, but also feeling loved and appreciated. When my friend introduced me to her family, she introduced me as the woman that would carry all her trays at work while she was pregnant so she didn't have to lift them. I can't believe she had even remembered that. I hadn't until she brought it up. They made me like an honored guest in their home. As a kid, I visited some friends who had scary, yes sir, no sir, fathers who were quick to use a belt on them. None of those guys turned out well as adults, I might add. The funny thing is my dad was an army platoon sergeant, yet he was a jovial and easygoing father. My friends' parents would make them finish their meals, even if they said they were full. The meals looked huge to me, and my friend was overweight. It felt depressing. If I was full at home, I'd never be pressured to eat absolutely everything if I didn't want to. Hung out with my college roommate's family around Christmas. No books in the house. None. This was early aughts. She told me her parents didn't want challenging books in their house to make the kids feel stupid. The parents were professors at our college. She, my roommate, and her siblings were fucking stupid. When I was a teen, I was genuinely shocked to see that other families actually loved each other and wanted to interact and say nice things to each other. I kept expecting it to turn dark. And when it didn't, I had no idea what to do and felt completely ashamed and out of place. People not saying, "I love you," before leaving or hanging up the phone. I was always taught to say, "I love you," to family before hanging up the phone or saying goodbye. You never know when your last goodbye will be, so let the last thing you say to a loved one be, "I love you." A tradition I continue to practice to this day. Yet I think I was the only one who did that in my friend group. Subscribe, my brothers.